Hello, Brad here, just to say we're super proud that the Friday 5pm podcast is sponsored by the Malt Miller, the UK's best home brew store.
We use the Malt Miller for all of our homebrew experiments, as well as tapping them up for advice and binging on their awesome YouTube channel all the time.
That's why whenever we release a homebrew video, we put a recipe kit live on the Malt Miller, so you can brew with the exact same amazing ingredients that we did. The same ingredients used by pro brewers.
So alongside the Malt Miller's nitro-flushed hops, cold-stored yeast and milled-to-order malts, you can pick up recipe kits for our 5 Points Best Bitter, Russian River West Coast IPA, and now the fastest beer in the world, a hazy session IPA that goes from grain to glass in less than 48 hours.
Sign up to their newsletter at tinyurl.com/Malt Miller to get 5% off your first order. With the Malt Miller's amazing customer service and Jonny's 48-hour recipe, you could order the ingredients on a Monday and be drinking the beer by the weekend.
Speaking of which, it's Friday.
It's 5pm.
So enjoy this week's Friday 5pm podcast. Good afternoon, biggies. Welcome back to the Friday 5pm podcast. There's not a beer in my hand, but there is a lot of paint.
Paint in your hand or paint on your hands?
In, on, over. I'm basically half man, half paint at this point.
Great. Have you taken up a new profession as a visual artist, or what are you doing, Jonny? Why are you covered in paint?
It's been on the cards, Bradley, with all the amazing art that I've produced thus far in my life.
Yeah, you're pretty masterful on the edits. Don't do yourself down.
Oh, thank you. I was thinking more canvas art, which I'm terrible at. But yeah, I appreciate the video art.
There you go.
Yeah, no, I'm painting the studio today. Well, I have been for the last 3 days, because who'd have thought that if you bought a building that on the inside is bright green MDF, you might have to do quite a few coats.
But it's great, man. It's like hop green. It's like fresh hop green. You should have left it.
I'd say more like bogey colour. It's a weird one. Green.
I've never seen MDF that's that green before. Yeah, it's quite strange, but hey.
It's probably just trying to imply some kind of sustainable element to it. But given the price I paid, I'm fairly convinced this is not a sustainable building. But hey, maybe I'll put some solar panels on it, and I'll slowly turn it that way. But yeah, I'm painting it. I'm painting it North Pole white.
So pretty white then.
Yeah, well, it's actually slightly off white, which is a bit weird. I mean, I've never been to the North Pole, but I assumed it would be really, really, really white.
It's definitely pretty white, but the thing with snow is in the North and South Pole is now it's getting lots of particulate matter on it, which is turning it not white, so like grey and like kind of murky. And that means that it doesn't reflect the sun as well, which is contributing to the ice melting. So off-white is not good in terms of snow and ice.
So you think that B&Q, when they're selling their paint, are probably making a statement here?
That's it. I think what it is, this all feeds into you becoming an artist. You're making a comment on the global warming, and it's COP whatever at the moment, isn't it? So you're making a political statement, right?
COP whatever, that's what it's called, yeah.
Yeah. I thought so. I thought that was what you were doing. I had an idea. I was like, yeah, that's definitely what he's up to.
Yep.
Yeah, polar white, nice.
Yeah. So that's happening, and at the same time, my dad is doing the electrics.
Yeah. So you've left him, right? He's out in the garden in the cold, and you're in warm, talking to Bradders, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'm having a nice cup of tea, chatting to Brad, and I'm watching my dad literally struggle out there.
You told me that you offered him a cup of tea, but you didn't have any biscuits. What kind of son are you to leave your poor dad outside without any bloody biscuits?
He's driven for an hour and a half to do my electrics to save me money, and then I haven't even provided not even a rich tea, not even the worst biscuit.
Rich. Oh, I mean, they're all right. Come on. I don't like tea, but I remember being a kid going round to my nan's house and dipping rich tea biscuits in her cup of tea because I didn't like the tea, but I just wanted to dip in the tea. It's great, nice memory.
I mean, that is a lovely memory, and I will say that rich tea, once it's dunked, is a perfectly servable biscuit.
Yeah, it just had a nice. I don't know. It took on some other quality to it. I guess a tea quality. It just sort of it goes from being incredibly dry. They're about as dry as a fucking cracker.
Yeah.
To becoming something that's sort of a bit inflated and pillowy, which is much more pleasing to my immature palate. I still have an immature palate, to be honest, but yeah.
You do. So we still haven't mentioned beer, but that's fine. We've talked a lot about tea, a lot about electrics. But yes, also you may have seen, I'll put a link in the pod description again to, I'm covering the whole build on stories and on Twitter. So you guys can go and watch the magic happen. It's got a definite, last night I was painting really late and it had definite murder shed vibes. It was like peeling paint, dark green, lots of like saws and circular saws and scalpels? No, I don't mean the scraper things.
Scrapers.
So yeah, it had a real.
I know what you mean.
Yeah. It was like a scene from the first series of True Detective. It was very, very disconcerting. But it's now looking quite nice and North Pole, but not good North Pole reflecting the light, but bad North Pole.
Are you thinking of bringing back any of the sort of first series of True Detective elements? Maybe some sort of twig creatures, and you could paint like a sort of satanic mural on the side of it inside.
I could do.
What do you reckon? I reckon it might be quite a good look.
I think it's very our vibe. Love and beer and
pretty
death.
Avant-garde for the suburbs. I reckon your neighbours would love it, especially the ones that play folk music in the garden. They'd probably be well up for it.
Oh yeah, well they're more on the Wicker Man side, not.
Well, that's it, right? They're gonna love it. They're the sort of Kill List vibe from what I've seen.
That could be a name for a brewery, something in that Kill List, Thrill List,
Kill List.
Need a beer pun in there.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had lots of interest from the neighbours. People want to come around and see it. People are like, "Oh, maybe I should get one of those." So I've been telling them not to buy it from the company that I did. Because it'll arrive a month late with bits missing.
That's just the pandemic, though, mate. I think it was a bargain. We're not shouting them out because the fuckers didn't give us any money off of it. But I genuinely think it looks great, man. Like, when we were building it day one, we got a lot of it built, and I thought, it looks pretty decent. But where you've put the glazing in, and you've managed to put the roof on, and all the shingles, it looks like a proper little house. It's great.
There you go. Thanks, Brad.
No shout outs though.
You can follow the build, and the building is probably, I'd say, 80% done at this point. We've just got to move everything in. We're going to do the floor this afternoon, I believe, which is why my dad's working hard on the electrics. And then there will be a video, probably not this year at this point now. Probably we'll show the build video. I've basically been time-lapsing everything. It's going to be the opposite of the Fuller's series where everything was slow-mo. This one, everything's going to be sped up.
Is it going to be like sort of slow TV where you're going to make like a 4-hour long shed build where it's just really, you just put it on in the background and watch it, and not really watch it, but it's on in the background. Is that your vibe you're going for? Like a sort of Scandinavian slow TV vibe, like a train journey?
Brad, you know me and you know the Craft Beer channel. We don't know what the video's going to be until I'm halfway through the edit.
That's it. You got to break a few eggs to make a YouTube content omelette, right?
Exactly. We'll see how much I've actually managed to record, how much of it is usable. I haven't really done any pieces to camera, so VO is probably going to work quite hard on this. Because it's one of those things. It happens every time I brew as well. Like, you have all these great intentions about filming this perfect narrative, and then something goes slightly wrong, and you just spend the rest of the day catching up and not really making content. It's why we need to make enough money to get a camera person.
Yeah, permanent camera person. Yeah, I like that idea.
Yeah.
Yes, one day, Jonny.
One day we'll get
somehow.
There. Maybe next financial year. I'm doing Craft Beer Channel's accounts at the moment, Bradley.
Yeah.
It's
have an accounts day, haven't we?
It's going to be okay.
Good stuff. Yeah, I know.
It
should be okay.
We've hardly spent anything because we haven't been able to travel. So, yeah, but it's going to be okay. All thanks to our lovely Patreons. And you could join our Patreon program and indeed our amazing Discord forum full of beer geeks and homebrewers from $1 a month. Pitch done. Should we move on
Nice.
to the? Should we move on to the video?
Well, yes, I was just going to say, I got a new phone yesterday, Johnny, and where I was sort of copying my other phone across, I opened up Filmic Pro, which is an app I use to film, and I found loads of, talking of Patreon sponsored, loads of clips of us when we were at Treehouse. And it was great. I just sat there and watched a load of them when we were queuing for like 2 hours. There's a video where I'm walking along the queue, which was insanely long, and then right at the front of it, and then at the bar having a drink. And then there's a great shot where we're sat out on these sort of sun loungers, and we put our feet up in synchronicity, and then ching our cans together, and it took me right back, mate. And that was all due to Patreon sponsorship. We managed to get out to New England pre-pandemic. That is the sort of power of Patreon in enabling us to make amazing content. So yes, please, guys and girls.
Was that hidden content, or was that content that we actually managed to put into the doc?
I feel like we used it, but I've definitely sent everything across. But yeah, it was all filmed on my phone. But like, it looked better than normal phone footage because I used this Filmic Pro thing. Yeah, I've upgraded my phone, Johnny. So I've now got a newer iPhone, which has got better cameras on it. So if I have to do any solo vlog emissions, then should look a little bit more HD, a little bit more filmic.
There you go. And then with my Super Samsung,
I reckon this rivals it. I reckon it rivals it. Honestly, when I see you on Tuesday, see you next Tuesday, then we're gonna have a battle off of the phones, mate. Phone-ageddon.
You remember the cider harvest video that I shot was all on my phone. I think every single shot.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty magic what you can do with a mobile these days, rather than spending endless money on lots of lenses and expensive Canons.
Well, yeah, now talking of expensive lenses and slow-mo and all the rest of it, we put a pretty nice DEYA video together, which went out on Wednesday, didn't it?
We did, yes. So that's something we've been sat on for a little while now, because obviously we had the fullest thing to get through before we could really put it live, but we've been sat on that video, and I've been wanting to put it out because obviously the beer is still out there and still fresh, but there's not a lot of it left. But it was... I mean, walking in today and now is just breathtaking.
I think honestly it's very stylish. I think it might be potentially the most stylish of the UK breweries. I'm going out there. They got great artists working with them.
Yep.
He's got an amazing vision. And the space is just cathedral-like and just really shiny, but also so it's got all the shiny steel, but then that's kind of counterpointed with lovely, giant sort of tropical, jungly plants everywhere, and natural wooden benches, kind of bespoke built kind of plywood, super cool, Scandi-looking. Sort of pods in the corner, I guess you could call them, where you could sit with a big group. It's super cool, man. It's great, and the beer's all right as well, I suppose.
It's one of those. I think it's the first tap room in the UK, and I think maybe the new Track one will have a similar vibe. That really, it feels like a properly purpose-built large space for exactly the kind of beer that's so popular in the States, and it definitely feels inspired by that side of the pond. And so much of the craft beer that's drunk in the States now is drunk in tap rooms rather than in pubs, but there's so much emphasis on drinking at the place where it's made, whereas in the UK that's still a relatively alien thing. Like we throw up some trestle tables at the weekend kind of vibe, and in the States it's like, no, when you get a new building you put over a third of the building to people who want to come, and DEYA, I think, are the first people that have really taken that seriously. There are other big tap rooms, like Thornbridge's one is absolutely huge, but again, it still feels a little bit, the aesthetic is still like, we just sort of threw it together, which is an aesthetic and a valid aesthetic, but it's so good to walk into a place and be like, this place is built for you kind of vibe.
Yeah, it's almost like when you go, particularly when we went on our West Coast adventure, and also a bit in Florida, but not quite as much. They're kind of destination places where, it's almost like a restaurant in there as well. Like you're gonna get amazing. When I say restaurant, like amazing burgers or, kind of barbecue or whatever it might be. And you're sort of, they're kind of expecting you to spend the day there potentially.
Yeah.
You're not going there on some sort of beer run. It's a destination where you're going to hang out, and I think that DEYA has definitely got that destination quality to it. The fact that they're kind of growing all food outside in polytunnels and all that kind of stuff as well. I wonder whether they have aspirations of making it like a sort of food offering. I don't know, but
yeah, I mean,
they have
potentially. I think I kind of got the sense that was all for the employees really to try and
like enrichment.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, potentially that they were telling us about there's a new coffee roastery and cafe that's moving in, and I think that part of Cheltenham's trying to. Cheltenham, I think, is a lovely town, but I don't think it's a cool town. And I think that maybe the landlords of that particular estate have seen that, and they're like, we can cater to the younger, hipper, food obsessed, drink obsessed people, and really build a destination industrial estate.
If ever there was one.
Yeah. So yeah, it was a magic space, and we were obviously there. To Theo and Gareth are wonderful people, wonderful brewers, and we wanted to see them. We filmed it while we were over at Hook Norton, so we thought we were close. It was still an hour drive, but we were mainly there because I'd brewed a collaboration beer with them, which was in tank, and we had a chat about that. The collaboration was to celebrate the release of A Year in Beer, my book, and it was supposed to be a West Coast IPA. And back when we filmed that, we thought it was a West Coast IPA. Now we know the truth, that it was at best a mountain IPA. Yeah,
you could claim it as a mountain, probably on the east side of the divide,
on the east side of the Rockies,
mountainous. Yeah, certainly mountainous though.
It was a very juicy beer, and I think. Well, firstly, I should say, and I say it in the video as well, it was an absolutely delicious beer, like a really beautifully made. I think that hop combination was really nice as well because you got loads of juice, but also loads of pine and grapefruit and those West Coast kind of character sort of poking through. And I wasn't even that mad about the yeast esters. Like I think it would have been nice to have a little bit less of them. But I mean, that beer is my perfect kind of beer. It's juicy in New England, but it's got loads of depth coming from the hops and more dank and piney and grapefruity character, and it's got elevated bitterness to make it really drinkable. So while it wasn't quite the brief, and I say it in the videos as well, I think, but it is 10% wheat. So all of that haze, all of that body is coming, from that yeast. Even though it wasn't quite West Coasty. And wasn't quite to plan, I think it was bloody brilliant, and I'm going to use that. I've got the recipe. I'm going to brew a homebrew version of it, I think.
Nice. Could we coin it? It's like East meets West Coast. Could we call it a West Coast or a Wheezy?
A Wheezy, I like that.
Yeah, Wheezy, like sort of mumblecore rapper, little Wheezy. Yeah, it's a big Wheezy actually.
It's a Wheezy IPA.
So yeah, man. It's a Wheezy for sure.
Talking on that, so actually I dug out a comment that I really enjoyed from the video that's sort of along the lines of the endless different names we have for IPA. So this comment came from Tony Beat Butcher.
Great name.
Yeah, I don't know whether he beats butchers or whether he butchers beats, but either way, that's a lifestyle choice. So Tony B. Butcher said, the reason I'm sceptical, straight in there, as a Belgian beer taster geek, is that hazy IPAs are tasting almost the same. When you drink a Belgian triple, for example, triple Lafort, triple Guden Carolus, triple Lupulus, triple Rochefort, triple Pas Deux, he loves triples, they're so different from each other. They've all got their own characteristics and original tastes. This I don't have with hazy IPAs. New England IPAs, triple IPAs, even sour IPAs I've tasted. Maybe I haven't tasted enough beers yet. I want to drink something original that stands out from the hazy, fruity, mosaic, Eldorado, Citra hops. I get where Tony's coming from, but I think the point I wanted to make and why I enjoyed this comment, and I got into a little conversation with Tony, is that what he's done there, IPA is not really a style anymore at this point. It's been broken down into multiple sub-styles. So what he's saying there is all New England IPAs taste the same, and he is pretty much right. It's just nuance for beyond that point, because it's just different hops, maybe a different yeast, but probably not. The malt bill is probably going to be exactly the same, and the techniques are probably all the same as well. But obviously, lots of people have come up with other styles of IPAs, other variations on that, like the Mountain IPA. We've got the West Coast IPA that came first. You've got sour IPAs. You've got black IPAs, red IPAs, rye IPAs, Belgian IPAs. And the thing is with IPA, every time we invent a new form of it, every time we do something that's got a little bit of nuance, a little bit more than just a bit of nuance, we call it something else. So everybody's like, oh, New England IPAs taste the same. You're like, yeah, that's because they are a very specific style. But there's lots of IPAs that taste very, very different to that. We've just called them something different. So saying that, triples are all different but IPAs are the same isn't quite right. Because, yes, there's lots of variation in triples, but that's because triple is a very wide a very wide style. You can get them in all kinds of colours. You can get them from 7.5% to 8%, all the way up to 11%. They all come with different yeast, different hops, different malt bills, different techniques. Some of them have spices in, some of them don't. And the only difference between triples and IPAs is that with IPAs, we've broken that down into subsections. So we got into the idiosyncrasies of beer nomenclature. And remarkably, after I did that, he came back to me and said, thanks for clearing things up. And I don't know about people listening to this podcast. I'm more confused than I was when I started this monologue. So I'm glad I cleared it up for Tony Beat Butcher.
I'm glad you cleared it up for me too. My comment's very much less involved. It's just from Stewie Clark, who says, good on DEYA for their excellent beers and their commitment to the 500 milliliter can. Gotta love a big boy.
Are you a 500ml can fan?
Well, maybe not in the sort of strength that your beer was, but I think there's something to be said for it, right? It's weird that a lot of the bigger beers, alcohol-wise, they put in big cans. I guess that's for sharing and whatnot, but I always found that a little bit incongruous.
I think I don't think it's designed for sharing. Sadly, I don't think the brewers really think that through enough, and I think it's a bit of an issue that those big beers are coming in in bigger cans. I think what it is they set up their canning line for their core beers,
right? Yeah,
and then are they going to order, because the minimum order of cans is so huge. That's one of the major issues with going into can. You're not going to be able to store 1,000,000 500 mils and 1,000,000 330s very easily, even in a brewery the size of DEYA. I love the 500ml can for everything that DEYA do except for the dippers, and I think it's a bit too big. But that said, they very kindly sent me a full case of Sunny Spells, and I am ripping through them nice. At quite an alarming rate. And I haven't really had any friends over because I've been so busy, so it is just me. So this could be the downfall of me, the 500ml double IPAs.
I don't know about Sunny Spells, mate. That sounds a bit more like sunstroke to me. So go easy there. Make sure you put on some sun cream, whatever that might be. I don't know, but you need to. I guess sun cream in this situation would be food.
Food, yeah.
And
line the stomach, water. Not the skin. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Great stuff.
Yeah. Well, the last thing we need to talk about on this week's podcast is what we did yesterday, Bradley. Do you remember what we did yesterday?
Oh, the days all blur into one in COVID land. But yeah, I definitely do, because we spoke to someone who I've always admired on television for being incredibly enthusiastic and just looks like he's got an absolute lust for life, which I think is an admirable quality. So yeah, we got to talk to the incredible Olly Smith of kind of wine tasting fame, but much more, as we sort of found out. Yeah,
so as part of our Fuller's series, we're also signed up to do a podcast to promote Cask and promote the campaign. And we were trying to find somebody who really loves Cask and always has and has a lot to say about it, but isn't from the world of beer. So we were hunting around trying to find some super cool people that love Cask. Bob Mortimer was mooted, but we never heard back from his agent. And lots of very famous and very exciting people. But we chose Olly Smith for so many reasons. Firstly, like Brad, he's one of my favourite communicators in sort of the alcohol industry. I think he knows so much, but presents it in such an accessible way. You know, a bit like Michael Jackson did back in the day, the beer writer, and Keith Floyd as well. One of these people that clearly knows so much, but only ever presents it. Well, in the podcast, with Olly, we talk about how when you're trying to educate somebody, it's not about what you know, it's about what they know and what they're interested in. So each time you have to tailor it to them. And I think that's a really important thing that a lot of communicators in whatever sphere kind of get wrong. And I've always loved him for that and how good he is at that. So we wanted to team up with him because we thought, who could be better at communicating this from outside the beer bubble than Olly? And in fact, he's made some TV shows about beer. So he was the perfect guest and just the most eloquent, interesting, and inquisitive person I think I've ever interviewed. It was an absolute joy to chat to him for an hour, and I think it's going to be one of the best podcasts we've ever done.
Oh, mate, I absolutely loved it. I mean, we off the back of it, we're all going to go for a pint in the old fountain at some point, and I think we might have made a third best friend for life. What do you reckon?
If Olly's listening to this, he's going to be like, I'm going to cancel that beer. These guys sound weird.
Yeah, no, he was awesome. Do you know what? His podcast is excellent as well. I think it's called Just a Glass. Is it Just a Glass? Something like that.
A Glass
along
With.
those lines. A Glass With. That's it. A Glass With. It's bloody entertaining. I tell you what. It's a really nice format. He gets great quality guests. Listen to our podcast first, coming out over the next couple of weeks. It'll be a Sunday upload, right?
Yeah.
Listen to ours first and then go and listen to Olly's material, because honestly, it's so charming. He's such a good presenter, like on a podcast medium. You can tell his kind of like love for life and his enthusiasm just comes through. Whatever he's talking about, he's just like really into it.
Yeah.
Which I just think is great. Like he's sort of like an Energizer bunny for positive vibes. He's awesome.
Yeah, the kind of guy you want to keep around. Exactly. And if that hasn't sold it to you, we also talk about the fact that he used to be a screenwriter for Pingu. So It's a great fucking podcast, and you should all tune in for that. But that's all we've got time for. That podcast will be going live in the next couple of weeks. The video, of course, is in the pod description. And do click on the link to look at the studio build, because it's getting there, my friends. It's really getting there. My dad started doing the painting that I was supposed to have finished by now, so I'm going to have to go and help him out. And we will see you next Wednesday for a cheeky little addendum to our Fuller's series, with us drinking the 1997 edition and telling you all about it. So we'll see you then. Love and beer. The Bubble and Friday 5pm podcasts are brought to you by the nerds behind YouTube's craft beer channel. You can watch over 400 mini documentaries at youtube.com/the craft beer channel. And if you love what we do, support us via Patreon and get access to merchandise and our amazing Discord forum, a positive and welcoming space for everyone who loves beer, food and homebrewing. Love and beer.